You see the weeds coming up along the path. You reach under the sink for the spray bottle, and you give them a good soaking. A few days later, they are brown and curled and looking dead, and you think, that did the job. And here is what almost nobody tells you. That bottle is the least effective tool you own, because on anything with a real root, those weeds are coming right back. The spray often kills only the part it touches. The leaves wilt and brown, and the root sitting underneath survives to push up again in a couple of weeks. You are not winning. You are renting a little time and paying for it over and over. And it gets worse. That chemical is fighting a war it is slowly losing. Weeds are evolving to resist it. The first weeds that shrugged off the most common weed killer showed up in a field back in 2000, and they have been spreading across the country ever since. The bottle comes with health questions and warning labels you have to read twice, and it does absolutely nothing to fix the one thing that invited those weeds in the first place: bare soil. What I use instead costs almost nothing. It gets more effective the longer you do it, not less. And instead of degrading your soil the way a chemical does, it actually feeds it and makes it better. So here is the deal. 5 methods. 5 things I reach for instead of Weedkiller for every part of the yard. The beds, the gravel, the cracks in the driveway, and the lawn. By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly what I use in each spot, exactly why it works better than the bottle, and exactly how to do it, with the technique and the timing spelled out. Not vague advice, the actual method. But first, let me tell you why right now is the moment that decides your whole season. Here is the single most important thing about beating weeds without chemicals: timing. The best time to deal with weeds is right now, while they are young. The soil is moist, the roots are still small and shallow, and when you go after them, the whole thing slides out clean. Wait a few weeks, let them grow up, flower, and drop their seed, and you have signed yourself up for years of the same fight. The old saying is exactly right. 1 year's seeding is 7 years weeding. Every weed you stop before it seeds is 100 weeds you never have to pull next summer. So beating weeds without a bottle is not really one trick. It is the right tool for each surface, plus one thing the chemical can never do: prevention. Before we start, do me one favor. Drop a comment and tell me what state you are watching from, and whether your worst weed battle is in the beds, the lawn, or the paths and the driveway. Because the fix is genuinely different for each one, and I want to know what you are up against. And throughout this video, I am going to keep coming back to 2 things that change the whole approach: where you live and whether you are dealing with annual weeds, the ones that sprout and seed in a single season, or the tough perennials with deep, stubborn roots. Those 2 things decide which tool you reach for. So let's start with the simplest tool of all: your own 2 hands. The first thing I reach for is not a tool at all. It is my own 2 hands. And the secret to hand pulling, the part most people get completely wrong, is this: you have to get the root. You have lived the wrong version. You grab the leafy top of the weed, you pull, and it snaps off right at the soil line. The bit in your hand looks satisfying. But everything that actually mattered, the whole root system, stayed in the ground. And a week later, that weed is right back where it was. Here is why. A lot of the worst weeds, dandelions, dock, thistle, store everything they need down in a thick taproot or a network of spreading roots. So when you tear off just the top, you are not killing the weed. You are pruning it. And like any plant you prune, it comes back, often stronger than before. So here's the technique. Pull when the soil is moist, ideally after rain or a good watering, when the ground is soft and loose, and the whole root will slide out with the plant. Grip the weed low right at the base and ease it out slowly and steadily instead of yanking, so the root comes with it instead of snapping. For the tap-rooted ones, loosen the soil right alongside the root first with a hand fork or a narrow trowel, then lever the whole thing out. And for the spreading rooted nightmares like bindweed and ground elder, dig wider than you think you need to, because every single fragment of root you leave behind becomes a brand new plant. And here is the timing payoff. Do this on the young weeds before they ever flower and set seed, and you are not just clearing today. You are shrinking next year's crop before it exists. Now, the honest part. This is the method for small areas and scattered weeds, and for the tough perennials, you have to be willing to dig and get all of it. But I will tell you this. 10 quiet minutes pulling young weeds after a rain beats an hour wrestling one monster a month from now, every single time. But when there are too many to pull one by one, I pick up the most underrated tool in the shed. When the weeds come up in a rash, dozens of little seedlings scattered across a bed or a gravel path, I do not pull them one at a time. I hoe them. And there is a right way and a wrong way, and the difference is everything. Here is the wrong way, the one most people use. They take the hoe and they try to dig and chop with it, hacking into the soil. And all that does is turn the ground over and bring a fresh batch of buried weed seeds up to the surface, where they promptly sprout. You clear one crop of weeds and plant the next in the same motion. Here is the right way. You skim, you do not dig. Keep the blade shallow and slice the weeds off right at, or just below, the soil line, cutting the top clean away from the root. You are not excavating. You are barbering. And here is the part that makes it actually work. Do it on a dry, sunny day. When you sever those little seedlings and leave them lying on the surface, the sun withers them and dries them out, and they die. Do the exact same thing in damp weather, and they simply reroot and carry on. The dry day is not optional. It is the whole mechanism. There is even a bonus to dry hoeing. Disturbing just that thin top skim of dry soil creates what gardeners call a dust mulch, a loose dry layer that actually discourages the next round of seeds from germinating. A quick word on the tool. A Dutch hoe, the kind you push and pull flat along the surface, is built for exactly this. And keep the blade sharp, because a sharp hoe slices cleanly where a dull one just drags and tears. Now the honest limit, and it is the same one as always. Hoeing is for young annual weeds. It will not kill a deep-rooted perennial like dock or bindweed. Slice the top off one of those and it just re-sprouts from the root, so those still get dug out by hand. But for a bed of young weeds, a sharp hoe on a dry morning clears the whole thing in minutes. And done every week or two through the season, it keeps you permanently ahead of the game. Quick honest note before the big one. If you are finding this useful, subscribing is simply the thing that tells YouTube to keep sending it your way. One click, and you keep getting this every week. That is the whole pitch. Now here is the method at the heart of this whole thing. The one that genuinely beats Weedkiller, not just ties it, because every tool so far deals with weeds that already came up. This one stops them from ever coming up at all. Here is the principle. Bare soil is an open invitation. A weed seed needs light to germinate, and every patch of bare ground in your beds is a nursery, sitting there waiting for the next gust of seeds to blow in and settle. So the smartest thing you can do is take away the invitation entirely. Here is the method. Once you have cleared a bed of weeds, you cover the soil with a mulch. Think of it as an organic blanket, 2 to 4 inches thick, of shredded bark, wood chips, straw, pine straw, or shredded autumn leaves. You spread it right over the cleared soil, around all your plants. Here is the mechanism, and it is beautifully simple. That blanket blocks the light from ever reaching the soil surface. And the weed seeds sitting underneath in the dark simply never sprout. No light, no germination. This is not a folk trick. A layer of mulch is the recommended foundation of weed control programs from university extension services across the country, exactly because it stops the seedlings before they start. A couple of details that matter. Aim for 2 to 4 inches. Too thin and stubborn weeds push right through it. And keep the mulch pulled back a few inches from the stems of your plants and the trunks of your trees, so you are not trapping moisture against them. And if you want near total control on a path or a really bad area, there is a belt and braces upgrade. Lay landscape fabric, a weed barrier membrane, down on the cleared soil first. Cut crosses in it to bring your plants through. Pin it down with pegs, and then spread your mulch on top. Almost nothing gets through that. Now here is the part that makes this genuinely better than the bottle. Not just different. A chemical degrades your soil. It kills the life in it. An organic mulch does the exact opposite. It holds moisture in, so you water less. It buffers the soil temperature, keeping roots cooler in the heat. And as it slowly breaks down, it feeds the soil, building organic matter and improving the very ground it is sitting on. The bottle takes from your soil. The mulch gives back to it. That is the whole difference, right there. One honest note. Mulch suppresses weed seedlings and annuals beautifully, but it will not smother an established perennial root that is already living in the bed. So you clear those out first, the hard way, and then you mulch to keep the ground clear and quiet. And the bonus is one you will see the same day. A freshly mulched bed just looks finished. It also stops rain from splashing mud and soil-borne disease up onto the leaves of your plants. So look at what one job, done once or twice a year, gets you. Weeds suppressed, moisture held in, soil improving, disease splash blocked, all at the same time. That is not a chore. That is money in the bank. Let me ask you something, because this one matters most. Have you ever had a bed you sprayed and sprayed every summer, and the weeds just kept coming back no matter what you did? Tell me in the comments. I would bet that bed has never once been properly mulched, and that one change would have ended the whole battle. Now, the beds are one thing. But what about the weeds in the gravel, the cracks in the driveway, the seams between your patio stones, where you cannot exactly lay down mulch? For those, the cheapest weed killer on earth is already sitting on your stove. Boiling water. Here is the scene you know. A gravel path or a paved surface is a perfect weed nursery. The seeds drop down into the damp, shady little spaces underneath the stones, and up they come in a rash, all through the gravel and along every crack. Here is the method. Boil a full kettle and pour the water slowly and directly onto the base of the weed. And here is the mechanism. That scalding heat destroys the plant's cells on contact and cooks the foliage instantly. And in a crack or in gravel, where there is no thick insulating soil to protect them, the heat can reach right down to those shallow roots. Iowa State Extension confirms that boiling water is a genuinely effective organic option and that it works best on young, newly emerged annual weeds in exactly these spots, like the cracks in a sidewalk. Now here is the honest limit, stated plainly, because it is the same limit as the spray bottle. Boiling water is a contact killer. It kills what it touches, but it often will not kill a deep taproot. So a well-established weed will wilt, brown, and then re-sprout a few days later, at which point you simply boil another kettle and pour again. And a real safety word, because this one can hurt you. Boiling water does not discriminate. It will kill any plant it splashes, including the ones you love, so keep it well away from your beds. And it can scald you badly, so wear closed-toe shoes, pour slowly and carefully, and keep children and pets clear while you do it. This is the whole point of matching the tool to the place. Boiling water is exactly right for the cracks and the gravel, and it is exactly wrong for an open bed, where you would be cooking the soil life and your own plants right along with the weeds. So for a confined patch of young weeds in stone, a kettle once or twice does the job, for free, with nothing toxic left behind. And then, wherever you can, mulch the spot or fill the gap, so they do not simply come back. Which leaves the trickiest battlefield of all, the lawn. The lawn is where weeds are sneakiest, because the low ones, the daisies, the dandelions, the plantains, flatten themselves down and duck right under the mower. The blade passes harmlessly over the top, and the weed just stays behind, sitting there. So, how do I deal with those without reaching for a weed and feed? Here is the easy option I choose not to take. A lawn, weed and feed will do the job, but that means blanketing your entire yard in chemicals to deal with weeds scattered here and there. On the lawn where the grandkids play barefoot, I would rather not. So here is the targeted method instead. For the low rosette weeds like daisies, I use a little tool called a daisy grubber. It is a small forked blade that slides right under the rosette and pries the whole thing out, root and all. And for the big tap-rooted ones, the dandelions and the thistles, I use a long, narrow weeding tool, the kind sometimes called a dandelion weeder or a fishtail weeder. You push it straight down alongside the taproot and lever the entire root out. Because here's the thing. Snap a dandelion off at the crown, and it is back in 2 weeks. Get the whole taproot, and it is gone for good. The timing is the same as hand pulling. It is all far easier when the soil is moist. And there is a companion tool for one more spot. For the weeds growing in the seams between paving and patio stones, a paving knife, sometimes sold as a weeding knife, runs right along the cracks to slice the roots and hook the weeds out. It is the precision tool for the seams that boiling water might miss, or the spots where you would rather not pour heat. Now, the honest part. Yes, this is more labor than spraying, but it is targeted. It is permanent on every weed you fully remove, and it is not dousing your lawn and your family in chemicals. And here is the long game that does the real work. A thick, healthy, well-mowed lawn crowds weeds out all on its own. They cannot get established where the grass is already dense and strong. So the true secret to a weed-free lawn is not poisoning the weeds, it is feeding the grass. A few minutes with a grubber after a rain, week to week, and that lawn stays clean without a single drop of chemical. So let me pull the whole thing together, because this was never really about weeds. Before we close, do one thing for me. Think of one person in your life who is still out there spraying their yard every summer, fighting the same losing battle over and over. The neighbor with the bottle permanently in hand. Send them this video, just the link. It might be the thing that finally gets them off the treadmill. Now, let me pull the whole thing together, because these are not really 5 random tricks. They are one approach, and it beats the bottle for one simple reason. The whole method comes down to 3 moves. First, remove what is already there. Your hands and your hoe, working the young weeds on a dry day, getting the whole root. Second, prevent what is coming. Mulch the bare soil, which is the one thing a chemical can never do for you. And third, spot treat the hard surfaces. Boiling water in the cracks, the right little hand tool in the lawn. And here is why it genuinely works better. The spray is fighting a war it is slowly losing to resistance. It kills only what it touches, and it quietly degrades your soil with every application. This method does the opposite. It gets stronger the longer you do it, because every single year the seed bank in your soil shrinks, the mulch builds the ground up richer, and the weeds have less and less room to take hold. Now, the honest truth. It is more work up front, especially that first season. I will not pretend otherwise, but it is not a treadmill of buying and spraying the same bottle forever. It is an investment, and it pays you back every year. And listen, if you are in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, the garden was never really about the weeds. It is the beds you have tended for 20 years, the gravel path up to your door, the lawn where the grandkids run barefoot. None of that needs a warning label or a chemical you have to keep your own family away from. You have earned a garden that is clean because you understand it, not because you doused it. So subscribe if you have not yet. It is free, and it always will be. No fluff, nothing to sell you. That is a promise. Now go out there while the weeds are still young, and leave the bottle under the sink. I will see you in the next one.